Tonight I want to start to talk about the Dovid, but before it's in the context, take a look on page. I can't see anything. Page 315. Friday night we have a long introduction before the evening prayer, and one of the things we say is the 29th Psalm. Now, as your helpful, friendly art scroll sitter gives you the instruction at the top of the page, it's customary to stand during the recitation of the following psalm, to recite it slowly and fervently aloud. Not everyone has the custom to stand, but it's very, very widespread. You're sitting before him, but here you stand up. And the question is why? I'm going to tell you now what the Arizal says. So in order to understand this, turn over the page to 317, sorry. The refrain of Lecha Dovid, as translated on 117, is, "Come, my beloved, to greet the bride, the Sabbath presence, let us welcome." Somebody is talking to somebody. Somebody's saying, "Come, my beloved." Somebody's inviting his beloved that the two of them, should go out together to greet Shabbos. Who's talking to who? So the answer is given away by your helpful, friendly translator, who capitalizes the B of beloved. Wasn't that nice of him? So I guess the beloved must be HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Creator. Then it's we who are inviting HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come out with us to greet the bride. The word for beloved in the Hebrew is dodi. That's a word from the Song of Songs. And in the Song of Songs, which is a parable on the surface between a king and his paramour, the woman that he loves, she calls him Dodi, my beloved. The whole of the Song of Songs is a parable about the relationship between the Creator and the Jewish people. So there, the woman plays the role of the Jewish people, and the king plays the role of the Creator. So the word Dodi there is how she addresses the king, who is the Creator. So the author of this poem took that word so that we who are standing there in shul Friday night invite HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come out with us to greet the Sabbath. Well, if we're inviting him to come with us to greet the Sabbath, he must be present. If he's present, when did he come in? Now turn back the page. He came in when we said Psalm 29. That's when he came in. And that's why we said Psalm 29. Because he came in. So you ask, really? What has Psalm 29 got to do with his coming in? And I'll tell you the answer. The Gemara says that the Shemona Esrei, the silent prayer, has 18 blessings. The reason it has 18 blessings is because the name of God appears in this psalm 18 times. Now, I would like you to take a minute to verify that. Count the number of times you have. You can do this in the English also, because God's name is in the English side also. Count the number of times God's name appears in this psalm. $18. Terrific. Now, of course, I know you're itching to say, but Rabbi, really there are 19, aren't 18. So it's off by one, huh? So first of all, historically there were 18 and the 19th was added later, but still we have 19. Okay, now look again. This is a little harder. Look at the text of the psalm. And I think you'll see that there is another reference to God, which you didn't count when you got 18. It's another reference to God, and which could be used or could not be used depending upon your option. It isn't one of the names you counted, it's something else, which you could either add it or not add it. What word is there in the psalm which isn't what you were counting before, but is a reference to God? Okay, are you looking on the English side?
No.
You're not looking on the English side. Okay, good.
He said melech.
Sorry?
He said melech.
Good try. That's a word that describes God, but it's not a name of God. If you looked on the English side, it would be a giveaway. But on even the Hebrew side, if you know, say again. That's also a description. You're looking on the Hebrew side, the third line. What do you see in the third line? How about Aleph Lamed? What is that? Kel Kavod, right? Kel Kavod Hareim.
Yeah.
Hirim. So that's another name of God. So you have 18 times the 4-letter name of God, plus the 2-letter name once. I call that irreverently the swing name. You know, you can put it in, or you don't have to put it in. You can count the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the main name of God. 18, and you ignore it or not. So you got 18 or 19. Now think what we're saying here. We took the number of blessings in the silent prayer from the number of times that God's name appears in this psalm. What's happening when we're reciting the silent prayer? Where are we? We are standing in the throne room, in front of the throne of glory with the Kadosh Baruch Hu Kiviyachol sitting on the throne of glory and speaking directly to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. This psalm becomes a template for what's going on. We are in direct contact with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So, says the Arizal, when you recite the 29th Psalm Friday night, that's because that's when God comes in. And that's why you stand up. And then you're prepared, on the next page, to say, come, my beloved, let us go to greet the Shabbos, because the beloved, capital B, has already come in. See how much is packed into a little instruction?
Yeah.
That's very typical of Jewish ideas. On the surface, they look very simple and somewhat arbitrary, and when you press, and you should press, when you press, you see that they have very deep roots. Okay, so let's now go back to the Chadodi on 317. If you look on the Hebrew side, you'll see that the refrain, how many words does it have? That refrain, that single line.
Words. Is it words or letters?
Well, I said words this time.
6, 7.
7. 7 is a very important Jewish number, right? Okay. Now try the letters. Twenty-six. That's the numerical value of the God's proper name, the Yod Nehei and the Vav Nehei. Now, before the comma, how many do you have?
Before the comma.
In other words, in the first 4 words together, 15. That's the numerical value of another name of God, a Yod and a Hey. It won't surprise you to hear that a Kabbalist wrote this poem, right? He knows the names and the numbers of the names and where the names are and so forth and so on. What you have here is that in the words that express my invitation to God to join me to go out to keep the Shabbos, I have a signature of his name in the numbers. That's quite appropriate, right? Okay. Now I want to look at the verses and make a few comments on the verses. This is, as I said, the author's a Kabbalist, so the material is very deep. But it says, Shamor b'zochar b'divrei echad. Shamor means to preserve. They say to right, to guard, safeguard. And Zohar means to remember. In the 10 pronouncements at Sinai, as they are written in the book of Exodus, and as they're written in the book of Deuteronomy, there are certain changes. The book of Exodus, the pronouncement concerning Shabbos starts with the word Zohar, to remember. And in Deuteronomy, it starts with the word Shamor, which means to safeguard. Shamor, in biblical language, usually connotes prohibitions, things you must not do. Zohar is a positive word. It's telling you yes to do something. So Shamor is an expression of the 39 categories of forbidden physical activity that are associated with Shabbos. And Zohar is Kishmo, a question of remembering, though it has its own dynamics. And of course, if you have two texts of the 10 pronouncements of Sinai, and one has one and one has the other, you want to know, was one said, what was both said, how were they said, and there's a long literature on that. One expression is that they were combined into a single speech, combined into a single concept. That's what it says, B'dibur echad namru. They were said in one word. And this was made, we were made to hear this by God who is unity, miuchad. Miuchad in modern Hebrew means unique, but unique means it's one of a kind. Like it says for that famous department store in Texas. You know? They make single items. Nothing is duplicated. Everything is absolutely unique. So, the idea is, these two concepts were communicated in a single communication because essentially that's what the Kodesh Baruch Hu did to express his unity. He made this communication a unity also. And that's why it goes on to say, Hashem is one and his name is one. For name and for glory and for praise, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with the world in many different ways, there's only one creator behind it. And you might have missed that. In fact, I think it's easy to miss. I think if you're looking at the world without any preconceptions, you're trying to explain what's going on in the world, and somebody told you the ultimate reality is a single agent is responsible for everything that goes on in the world, I think you would find that very unintuitive. I think you would be not attracted to that as an explanation for what's going on at all. Because what happens in the world falls into different categories, and the categories are very, very different from one another. From the absolute precision and repetitiveness of the heavens, to the arbitrary, unpredictable blowing of the wind, to the regular but varying tides, to the growth of plants, especially those which are annuals, so that they grow in the spring, and then they die in the fall, and they have to come back and regrow in the spring. Do those phenomena look anything like one another? Do they run on any similar patterns? Why would you think that the power that's responsible for the sun, the moon, and the stars is the same power that's responsible for the blowing of the wind? You would never dream of that. And the tides and the growth of the grass, you would surely assign them to different powers. So to be told that there's only one power is very unintuitive. Of course, intellectually it's very beautiful. If everything is traced back to a single source, then everything's organized. You see the relationships between things. It's very economical. So we're being told that Shem, Tiferes, Tehillah, the great glory, is that there is one Creator who expresses himself in a vast, vast variety of ways. So this now is a kind of stamp of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the mitzvah of Shabbos, and the fact that his unity is essential. That's the first introduction to this refrain of we're inviting him to come with us to go out to read Shabbos. That's the first stanza. The second one, let us go to meet towards Shabbos. Lekras in Hebrew means to go towards something. For it is the source of blessing. Now here we have a number of ideas which play a role here. Let's see if I can give it to you here. I think I can. Yeah, it's right in the Shemona Esrei here. If you look on page 340, the 4 lines down from the top of the text on 341, thus the heaven and the earth were finished, all their legion, the things that were in them. The seventh day, God completed his work, which he had done. Stayed on the seventh day from his work which he had done. God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. Caused on that day he abstained from his work. So he blessed it and sanctified it. There you have a verse that says he blessed it. And here we're now saying that it is the root, the source of blessing. So here there's a comment of the Talmudical sages. He blessed the seventh day with manna, and he sanctified the seventh day with manna. Wow, let's figure this out. How did the manna fall? What was the pattern with which the manna fell? It fell 6 days a week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you got enough for that day's food. Friday, you got a double portion. 1 portion for Friday, 1 portion for Shabbos. And it didn't fall on Shabbos. So the first question that's asked, this is in a Zohar, which we say every Friday night before a Kiddush. The first question that's asked is, what does blessing mean? Blessing means to increase something, make something bigger, give it more volume. You say that you blessed the seventh day with manna? Oh. That means you should have gotten the double portion on Shabbos. That would be the blessing of manna on Shabbos. Not only don't you get an increase of manna on Shabbos, you don't get any. How could getting none be a blessing? And the answer that the Zohar gives is that there are 2 concepts of blessing. One is where you receive a blessing, and the other is where you create blessing for others. When God tells Abraham the greatness that he's going to give him, one thing he says there is, V'hyeh bracha. You will be a blessing. Not that you'll receive a blessing. Say the Talmudic sages, that means Abraham was given the power to bless others. So the Zohar describes it as follows. You get a double portion on Friday. Okay, you have food for Shabbos. Now, what you do with the food on Shabbos is what creates a blessing for you during the coming week. Shabbos is a time of testing. What are you going to do with the food? You're going to have meals. What are you going to do at the meals? What is your focus going to be? Your consciousness. Ooh, that's a new wine. Wow, that's a great wine. Nice of you to bring it for Shabbos. Wonderful wine. Maybe the emphasis is a little off. No, the meat. Sylvia, you made such great meat. That's really just wonderful. Thanks a lot. Maybe we can have a Thursday also next week. But it's Shabbos. Hello. You have to feel that you're sitting at a table, like in the temple, where the food that you eat from the sacrifice, says the Gemara, you got it from Kiviyachol, the Creator's table. Once you offer the sacrifice, it all's His, and He invites you to eat at His table. That's supposed to be the experience of Shabbos. And Zohar there has certain formulas that a person should say, if you know what they mean, inviting a Kadosh Baruch Hu to be at your table. If that's the way that you use the food on Shabbos, that will be the source of blessing for the rest of the week, the coming week, that you should be invested in again and get more manna during the week. So, at a time when you are being tested to see whether you deserve the bracha, that's no time to give you the bracha. That's why you don't have manna on Shabbos. Shabbos is the source of bracha for the whole coming week, including next Shabbos. But you don't get it on Shabbos. So, that's what it means, the source. We're back here on 317. Welcome to Sabbath, let us go. For it is the source of blessing. What you do on Shabbos, Kol Birchan Delael Vasata B'Yom Shivaya Talian. It says there, all the blessings of above and below depend upon the seventh day. So that's one thing in that stanza. Then it says, the Merosh Bikerim Nesucha, from the beginning, from antiquity, she was honored. That means, unlike, we've said this many times, unlike the holidays, which we determine their occurrence by setting the beginning of the month, Shabbos was set by the activities of the Creator during creation. And since then, it's been a weekly cycle, since the very creation. So it has precedence. It's the first of all expressions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's giving holiness to the world. And then come words which require some thought and analysis. It's the last in action and the first in thought. Last in action and first in thought. Well, it's true that Shabbos is the end of the week. It's the last day of the week. There is a problem here for Christian calendars, and it goes back to a certain event in the history of Christianity, because on many Christian calendars, the first day of the week is Sunday. And Sunday is their day in which they celebrate the biblical Shabbos. So that's a little bit of a problem there, since the biblical Shabbos was the last day of the week of creation. And that's because a certain Roman emperor said that he's friendly to Christianity, he wants to support it. But at that time, the early Christians had 2 days a week, which they declared as special. One was Saturday, which is the biblical Sabbath, and Sunday was the day in which something happened in their religion, which was very important. And the emperor said, you're not getting 2 days a week. Choose one. And they decided to move Shabbos to Sunday, the Sabbath to Sunday, because that was the day that characterized their religion. And then that became the first day of the week, even though biblically it can't be the first day of the week. And one of the reasons it can't be the first day of the week is because the word Shabbos in Hebrew has a meaning. And it means to cease, to stop doing something. And obviously, you can't start by stopping. You have to start first and go for a while, and then stop. So if you're talking about something which is designated as the stopping day, there's got to be things before it that you were doing that you can then stop. That's why it belongs at the end of the week, not at the beginning of the week. But the Chadoli here is saying something much deeper than that. It's Sof Maaseh, it's the last in action because the end of the week. But Machshava Teffilah, first in thought. What does that mean? So I'll tell you a midrash. The midrash says that human beings were created last of all the process of creation. And the midrash says this is a two-edged sword. Because if a person, first people, Jewish people, if they live appropriately, if they live up to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from them, then we tell them, you came into a world that was already completely prepared for you. Everything else was laid out so that when you walked into it, everything was ready for you. But if the person lives in a way that's inappropriate, then we tell him, you think you're something special? Even the mosquito was created before you. You came even after the mosquito. So you think, wow, that's a very challenging midrash. Is it good to be last or not good to be last? Seems like you can play it either way, you know. If you want to praise the person, you say, oh, it's wonderful that you're last. And if you want to beat him up, then you can say, oh, look how terrible it is to be last. What's the real meaning of being last? And the answer, this is what the Midrash, I believe, means, is that there are two different kinds of lists, numbered lists, and they have each one has its own character. Let's suppose I send somebody to the store to buy things. I give them some money. So listen, here's what I need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I tell them, I don't know if it's enough money. So buy them in order. Number 1 is the most important. Number 2 is less important. All the way down to the bottom. The 7th is the least important. That's if they are in order of preference. But suppose I give him instructions to build something. So, first do this, and then do this, and then do this, put on the chimney, and so forth and so on. I want a finished house. The last thing on the list is the finished house. That's the purpose of the list. If the last thing weren't there, the number 1 wouldn't have been there. It was only there as a way to get to the last thing on the list. So this is what we say to the person. If you live appropriately, if you live well, then we say, the whole world was created before you came into the world because it was created for you. You are the purpose of the whole world. That's why you come last. That's why you walked into a world that was already completed and set up for you, because you're the purpose of it. But if you aren't the purpose of it because you don't live appropriately, then the order of creation isn't means to ends. It isn't creating what's necessary for the last thing. It's just a list of items that were created. Then you're least important because you came last. The really important things come first. You can determine what kind of list it is by the way you live. So, Sof Maaseh b'machshava teffilah, last in action, first in action, last in action and first in thought, is a definition of a purpose. And that's what it's saying about Shabbos. Shabbos comes at the end of the week because it's the purpose of the week. It's not resting up from the efforts of the week so that next week you can work harder. No. It's the purpose of the week. Resting up for the next week means the purpose of Shabbos is the work week. Here, the truth is the work week is for the purpose of Shabbos. So we see the whole week leading to Shabbos. Indeed, as I guess almost everybody knows, we don't have names for the days of the week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We have numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the way we say the numbers in Hebrew is Yom Shlishi b'Shabbos, Yom Revi'i b'Shabbos, Yom Chamishi b'Shabbos. It's the third day of Shabbos, the fourth day of Shabbos, the fifth day of Shabbos. I'm counting the days of the week in their leading up to Shabbos. In fact, the mitzvah of remembering Shabbos, says the Ramban, you perform that mitzvah when you say the daily psalm, because you say that today is the nth day to Shabbos. So you're remembering Shabbos in the name of the day. So we have to understand that the way you orient yourself is that you think of Shabbos as the goal. I'm going to tell you two things about that. First of all, the Gemara says that Shammai ate all week long in honor of Shabbos. What does that mean? Well, he'd go to the market on Sunday. He would look for something nice for Shabbos and buy it and put it away for Shabbos. Go to the market on Monday. If he found something in the market on Monday that would be better for Shabbos the way he bought on Sunday, he would buy the one on Monday and then on Monday eat the one that he put away for Shabbos on Sunday. And on Tuesday he'd do the same thing. It means all week long he's looking for the best thing he can have for Shabbos, and he's eating the second best so that the best one will be left for Shabbos. What's he doing when he's eating? What's he thinking about? He's thinking about, how will I celebrate Shabbos? He eats the whole week in honor of Shabbos. In addition to that, there's a very famous story in the Gemara in Shabbos, which has a very profound implication for this idea, and also explains a custom that some Jews have. I don't know if you may have seen Jews who take hadassim and inhale the aroma for Kiddush on Friday night. Maybe some do it in the daytime also, like we do on Havdalah. Yeah, we do it we do it in the daytime also. What are we doing with the hadassim? So here's the story. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, at a certain point in his life, became a fugitive because the Roman government decided that he should be killed. And he and his son, Rabbi Elazar, took refuge in a cave. They were sustained miraculously. There was a carob tree and there was a spring. And they were there for 12 years. After 12 years, Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, came to the mouth of the cave and made the following announcement. Who will tell Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar, that the emperor has died and the decree has been annulled? Now, if you have a taste for literature, the alarm bells are ringing. What? He stood at the mouth of the cave. He made a loud announcement. He didn't go into the cave, didn't invite them out, just said, who will tell them? I mean, he's telling them, isn't he? Still, it's a very peculiar way to have them exit the cave. So they left the cave. And the Gemara tells that wherever they saw Jews engaged in economic activity which embroiled them in the economic net of the society, their eyes created a destructive fire. A voice from heaven proclaimed, did you exit the cave to destroy my world? Go back to the cave. So they went back to the cave. This time they stayed in for 12 months and exited on their own. No invitation from Elijah. Commentaries explain that a soul which is being punished in Gehenna for its misdeeds doesn't stay there more than 12 months. So obviously they realized they were wrong. Something went wrong. After 12 months they came out, and now we're up to stage 2. Rabbi Elazar, the son, younger, still a firebrand, still boiling with inspiration, where his eyes looked, there was a destructive fire. But his father healed what his son's fire destroyed, and he said to his son, if there would be only 2 people to justify the whole of the creation of the world, it's enough. Meaning, yes, the other people are lost, including Jews. They're lost. You and I will carry the burden on our shoulders. Our lives will justify the creation. That's stage 2. But then it says that the day in which they exited was Friday, And they saw an old man running down the street, holding in his hand 2 hadassim, 2 twigs of myrtle. So they said to him, "Where are you running, and why are you carrying 2 twigs of myrtle?" He said, "They're in honor of Shabbos, one for Zachor and one for Shomer, each one for one of the 2 different ways in which the mitzvah of Shabbos occurs on the tablets of stone." And at that moment they found Nachas Ruach, peace of spirit. What happened here? What happened here is this. The reason why they became fugitives is because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai criticized Rome, criticized their civilization and their economy as degraded and self-centered, and the Romans found out about it. They said, "That's what you said about us, you're going to die." So they went into hiding. They went underground, literally, for 12 years. His critique was, the whole of Rome is rotten. Spiritually and morally rotten. They come out after 12 years and see Jews who are tradesmen or craftsmen or commercial farmers or whatever, integrated into the Roman economic net, and they say, "You've been utterly corrupted. You've been utterly corrupted." What? You're doing business with the Romans? A voice from heaven proclaims, "Did you exit the cave to destroy my world?" That's why Elijah didn't invite them out. Because he knew the invitation, the exiting this time isn't going to work. It's going to be a failure. God says, surprise, surprise, these Jews who are integrated into the Roman economic net are my world. And you have no right to destroy my world. Okay, we're back in for 12 months. They come back out. Belazar is still not reconciled. He's still destructive. His father says to him, "Let's learn the lesson. They're part of God's world. So are cows part of God's world. So are thorn bushes part of God's world. It's all God's world. They're created as a means, and we'll be the ends. We'll justify the whole of the creation. Because something is only a means and not an end, you don't destroy it." That's stage 2. When they saw the old man running with the 2 twigs of myrtle, and he too was a craftsman or a shopkeeper or a weaver or something else, which was integrated in the economic net, and he says to them, "You're right. I pay Roman taxes, and I sell to Roman buyers, and all of it is in honor of Shabbos. That's why I have these 2 pieces of twigs of myrtle to celebrate." Twigs of myrtle are very sweet smelling. They used at weddings. To celebrate Shabbos. It's all for the sake of celebrating Shabbos. What they understood then is that you could be integrated into the Roman economic net and still be dedicated to Shabbos and dedicated to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and you too can play the role of justifying the creation. You don't fade into the background like cows. So this is how your dedication to Shabbos can transform the whole of the activities of your week into something holy, into something spiritual, if they are dedicated to providing for the Shabbos, which is the purpose of the creation. One more thing I'll tell you. There's a famous statement in Chazal which people use over and over again: Shabbos me'ein olam haba. Shabbos is of the same category as the world to come. Well, we have sources that say that no one has seen what the world to come is like, and because we're in this condition of the world, we can't understand what it's like, and still we're being told that Shabbos is somehow of the same category. So I have a parable to explain this, but it's only mine. I didn't see it anywhere. Let's imagine a fish, a barracuda. Could you explain to a barracuda what fire is? I think you find it hard because he's underwater. Certainly can't give him a sample. But imagine that you heat up the water and you tell the barracuda, fire is something like this. Okay. Now imagine the barracuda equipped with an aqualung so he can breathe water, and he's taking a stroll on the land. How good will he be at identifying fire on the land? He won't confuse stones with fire. He won't confuse flowing streams of water with fire. He won't confuse clouds with fire. And when he comes to fire, he says, hey, that's what it felt like in the water. He would probably be good at identifying fire. Of course, identifying it from only a minor effect. Fire does a lot more than feel warm. Particularly, it oxidizes things and destroys them. But still, it is of the same category. So Shabbos, in the same sense, is like of the same category of the world to come. We can't make the jump from the Shabbos we have to imagine the world to come. But when we get to the world to come, and we look back on this period of existence, we'll say, aha, now we see the way in which Shabbos is similar to the world to come. So that's the idea of Shabbos representing the ultimate purpose. The ultimate purpose of man's existence is the world to come. The Gemara says, living in this world as a prelude to the world to come is like preparing for a sea voyage. You have to think in those times where there were no helicopters. You got on the boat with what you have, you leave shore, that's it. You have only what you took with you, nothing else. There's nothing available while you're on the ship. The world to come is like that. You prepare for it here. When you get there, you can't prepare anymore. You can't add anymore. You only have what you prepared for here. So in that respect, Shabbos is very much like the world to come. And that's the idea of it being the last in action, the first in thought. When the Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world, the purpose of the world is for people to end up in the world to come. So that's the goal to which the whole process is leading. And when an agent goes through a process leading to a goal, the thought of the purpose accompanies him at every stage. At every stage he's thinking, okay, we're sitting here, we have to get there. What should we do here in order to be able to get there? The getting there is what animates the agent throughout the entire process. That's Sof Ma'aseh B'Machshava Teffilah. Those four words have a very, very profound message. Okay, just start the next one. We have about 4 minutes. Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha, the holy place. It says sanctuary. That's not bad. The holy place of the king is the royal city. Now, like many things in Jewish liturgy, that's not just poetry. It is, in fact, a literal statement. We think of the temple as a tiny portion of the city of Jerusalem. In a certain sense, that's true. But it's also true that the whole city of Jerusalem is holy. The Mishnah in Kelim says there are 10 levels of Kedusha. And when you are told to do something, Lifnei Hashem, in Hashem's presence, some of the things that you're told to do is to do certain things in the city limits. Not in the actual environs of the building of the temple itself, but within the city limits. So really, the Mikdash, not really, I shouldn't say it that way. The word Mikdash can refer to the entire city of Jerusalem, not just to the particular building in the center. Now, the stanza says, get up and exit from your overturned, destroyed state. Upheaval is good in English. We're now saying this post-exile, post-destruction of the temple, and we're now addressing the city of Yerushalayim to become erect and exit is your condition of upheaval. It's enough that you have been dwelling in the valley of tears, and he will have pity upon you. Because Baruch will have pity upon you. So we're invoking the recovery of the city of Jerusalem. And the next few have a similar theme. When I was first exploring Yiddishkeit about 106 years ago, I'm very old. This bothered me because the mitzvah to rebuild the city of Jerusalem, rebuild the temple, is a mitzvah you cannot do on Shabbos. So why am I invoking the recovery and the rebuilding of Jerusalem on a day when it can't be done. I asked this question of my Rebbe's brother, Zechronam Levracha, and he explained as follows. There are three dimensions of the creation. One is time, one is space, and one is soul. And each dimension has its central point, the point where it is most powerfully expressed. In time, it's Shabbos. In space, it's the temple in Yerushalayim. And in soul, it's the Jewish people. And these three centers reinforce one another. If we had all three, it's called synergy when the whole is more than the sum of the parts. They interact so as to reinforce one another. If we would have all three, we would have that synergy and we would have that completion. Well, Friday afternoon, when you as a Jew have that soul, and it's now the time is coming, that's when your thoughts go to the third that we don't have, to the place that we don't have, the temple, and you long for the temple. You can't help but think we have two, if only we had the third, then we would have the complete interaction of them. So this isn't an invitation to do something on Shabbos which you can't do on Shabbos. That's not what it is. It's simply you can't help longing for it. That's what my Rebbe's brother told me. And that's one thing to have in mind when you say this here. It's the holy dwelling place of the King, and we're longing for it to be restored from its position of destruction and upheaval. Okay, Yetzer Hashem, we'll pick it up again on Sunday.